I came across this book last month. I was blown away by what I had read. The story of the Nobel family is one you need to hear about. When you hear Nobel, you immediately think of the Nobel Prize and Alfred Nobel, the guy who invented the dynamite. But his brothers were as brilliant as he was. Together, they built an industrial empire so powerful that people called them the Russian Rockefellers. This is a story where ambition and bold moves create a dynasty, from very humble beginnings to building an empire. It all started in 1837 with a Swedish immigrant, Emanuel Nobel, who began the journey leading to his son Ludwig, the mastermind who would change the Russian oil industry forever. Emanuel Nobel's journey to Russia. Our story starts with Emanuel Nobel, a determined inventor who dreamed of big ideas and creations. However, Emanuel's life was anything but easy. Even though he was clever and hardworking, he faced failure after failure. In fact, Emanuel went bankrupt more than once. But Emanuel had an unstoppable spirit. He believed his hard work and creativity would pay off one day. One of his big failures involved a risky project to build steam engines, which he hoped would revolutionize the shipping industry. But due to high costs and technical issues, the project spiraled out of control, leaving Emanuel nearly penniless. The situation was so desperate that his two young sons, Robert and Ludwig, had to sell matches on the streets of Stockholm to help make ends meet. But Emanuel never gave up. He made a huge decision. He left his home in Sweden and moved to Russia, leaving behind his family to try his luck. There, he saw an opportunity. Russia needed new inventions to protect its military. Emanuel invented underwater mines that could be used to defend Russian ships, and for the first time, he found success. He sent for his family, who had struggled without him for 5 long years, and began to build his factory and fortune in Russia. Emanuel's family was finally together again, and his sons Robert, Ludwig, and Alfred grew up in an environment of hard work, learning everything they could about engineering and business. Little did they know they were about to build a legacy that would last for generations. Ludwig Nobel's rise from engineer to empire builder. Of all Emanuel's sons, it was Ludwig who would become the great builder of the Nobel family empire. Ludwig didn't just want to make things, he wanted to change entire industries. Starting out, he helped his father manufacture steam engines and later moved into weapons production for the Russian government. But Ludwig's big moment came when he discovered the oil industry in Russia. At that time, the oil fields of Baku were chaotic and rough, more like a Wild West than a business. But Ludwig saw potential. He noticed that oil was becoming incredibly valuable, and he had the vision to organize the industry in a way that nobody else could imagine. He built pipelines to transport the oil from the fields, created Europe's first oil tankers to ship the oil, and set up depots to store and sell oil across the country. One of Ludwig's major early failures came when he overexpanded his weapon manufacturing business, depending almost entirely on Russian government contracts. When those contracts suddenly dried up, Ludwig was left with a factory full of workers and materials, but no income to pay for them. Rather than giving up, Ludwig learned from this mistake. Instead of relying on one big client, he diversified his business by creating consumer products like the Nobel wheel, a durable carriage wheel built to survive Russia's rough roads. The invention became so popular across Russia that it practically gave him a monopoly on carriage wheels. By broadening his focus and developing products for everyday people, Ludwig turned his setback into an opportunity. This shift also gave him the financial stability he needed to later take on the risky venture of building Russia's oil industry. In just a few years, Ludwig had built the most advanced oil operation in Russia, producing the purest kerosene that people could find. The turning point: Ludwig's innovations and the battle for quality. Ludwig's success didn't happen without setbacks. The oil industry in Russia was competitive and crowded, full of cutthroat business people who didn't care about quality. Most companies produced cheap, low-grade kerosene, known as Baku sludge, but Ludwig was different. He insisted on making only the highest quality products, and this soon made the Nobel brand famous. Creating high standards came with its own battles. Ludwig had to convince his workers, suppliers, and even his competitors that quality was worth the effort. Many people doubted him, thinking he was wasting time and money. But Ludwig knew better. He believed that if they set high standards, people would trust the Nobel name. Slowly, his competitors tried to follow his lead, but they couldn't match his quality. Over time, people saw that anything with a Nobel name was the best of the best. Ludwig's hard work paid off as his oil business grew, eventually producing over 30% of all the oil in Russia. This commitment to quality would become one of the key secrets to the Nobel family's lasting success. Alfred Nobel and the creation of dynamite, a dangerous path to fame. While Ludwig was conquering the oil industry, his brother Alfred was busy with his own mission, harnessing the power of explosives. Alfred had learned about nitroglycerin, a dangerous but powerful liquid, and believed he could turn it into something useful, but the work was incredibly risky. During his early tests, Alfred faced a tragic failure when his younger brother Emil and several workers were killed in an accidental explosion at his factory in Sweden. This event devastated Alfred and nearly destroyed his dream of creating a safe, controlled explosive for construction and mining. After the explosion, local authorities banned Alfred from experimenting within city limits, forcing him to set up a laboratory on a barge floating on a lake. Despite this setback, Alfred persisted. He finally succeeded by combining nitroglycerin with a stable, absorbent material to create dynamite, which could be transported safely. His invention revolutionized industries worldwide, but Alfred always carried the weight of its dangers and kept refining it for safety. Robert Nobel's surprise decision, how a chance trip led to an oil empire. Not everyone in the family was destined for greatness. Robert, the eldest brother, struggled to find his place. He tried his hand at several jobs and seemed to be the least successful Nobel. But one spontaneous decision changed everything. Robert was sent by Ludwig to Baku to buy walnut wood for their factory. Instead of buying the wood, he noticed something else. Oil, lots of it. In an instant, Robert decided to buy a small refinery instead of wood, risking everything. This moment was the turning point for the Nobel family's fortune. When Robert told Ludwig about the oil, Ludwig saw the opportunity to build something huge. The two brothers began working together, transforming Baku into the heart of Russian oil production. Ludwig's engineering skill and Robert's surprising business sense led to an oil empire that would last for decades. The empire expands. The Nobels versus Rockefeller. As the Nobel oil empire grew, it attracted the attention of other powerful companies, including Standard Oil, owned by John D. Rockefeller. Rockefeller already controlled most of the American oil market and didn't like competition. Soon, the Nobel family faced fierce price wars, sabotage, and underhanded business tactics from Standard Oil. But Ludwig fought back with innovation. He built the world's first fleet of oil tankers, allowing him to transport oil more efficiently than ever before. He set up depots and marketing centers across Europe, making Nobel Oil a well-known brand worldwide. The battle between the Nobels and Standard Oil became one of the biggest business rivalries of the time. While Rockefeller dominated in America, the Nobels held strong in Russia, proving they could go toe-to-toe with one of the most powerful companies in the world. Emanuel's daring escape, a dramatic end to the empire. After Ludwig's death, his son Emanuel took over the family business. Emanuel was wealthy and respected, but he faced a crisis that no amount of money could solve. In 1917, the Russian Revolution changed everything. The Bolsheviks, led by Lenin, took over Russia, seizing land, businesses, and banks. The Nobel family, once one of the most powerful in Russia, was suddenly in grave danger. To avoid detection, Emanuel disguised himself as a simple peasant and joined a group of workers fleeing to Sweden. Bolshevik guards stopped people at every checkpoint, searching for wealthy elites attempting to escape. Emanuel risked exposure at each stop, knowing even the smallest slip could cost him his life. His only belongings were hidden under his clothes, and he carried a forged passport that he had to skillfully pass off as his own. It was a tense journey, but Emanuel's quick thinking and calm demeanor allowed him to reach safety in Sweden, where he continued his family's legacy and protected the future of the Nobel Prize. The legacy lives on. Today, the Nobel family's legacy lives on through the Nobel Prize, a testament to their journey from inventors and industrialists to champions of peace and knowledge, the story of the Nobels.